Here are the top stories for today, May 18, 2021. Going full blast, President Rodrigo Duterte says the government is ready to deal with a possible worst-case scenario due to the emergence of new COVID-19 variants. The president heeds the advice of former Senator Juan Ponce Enrile to ignore critics over the West Philippine Sea issue, saying he is not responsible to anyone for his foreign policy. The Department of Health says 69% of the first batch of Pfizer vaccines that arrived in the country are allotted to Metro Manila. And the evacuation of Filipinos within Israel is underway as exchange of fire between government troops and Palestinian militants is still far from over. Good day, I am William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. Our top story this evening, the government is ready to go full blast in dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. This as President Rodrigo Duterte raised the possibility of a worst-case scenario due to the emergence of new and more serious variants of the disease. In a pre-recorded public address aired earlier today, Duterte admitted that it would take a long time to address the health crisis as he told the public to brace for the worst. Despite this, he said, the government is sparing no effort in battling the pandemic, even if it means selling government properties to provide more funds for COVID-19 response. The Philippines has so far recorded over 1.1 million COVID-19 cases, majority of whom are recovered cases with over 54,000 active cases and 19,000 deaths. Among variants detected in the country are the B.1.617 from India, B.1.1.7 from the United Kingdom, and the B.1.351 from South Africa, and the local P3 variant.
So, okay yung ating preparation. We continue to prepare and we calibrate our preparedness in accordance with its propagation. Kung medyo palapit na, at marami na tinatamaan, then we will go full blast in making everything operational. I would be happy if you continue to build the infrastructure of our COVID-19 fight system, because for as long as the COVID-19 is here, and it will take a lot of time before it will finally disappear, if at all. And with the advent of the new variants, it is good to prepare for a more serious attack.
President Rodrigo Duterte has decided to ignore those criticizing his foreign policy on the West Philippine Sea upon the advice of former Senate President Juan Ponce Enrile. In a special meeting with Enrile and some members of his cabinet, Duterte said he was convinced that he would rather not waste his time explaining his decision to navigate the maritime route peacefully to avoid troubles with China. Duterte also thanked Enrile for agreeing with his stance on issues concerning the WPS. Prior to Duterte's declaration to ignore critics, Enrile told him that instead of making a foe of China, it is better for the Philippines to befriend China without surrendering its sovereign rights. Enrile also noted that despite the Philippines' win against China in a 2016 ruling over the South China Sea, the ruling cannot be implemented because of the country's lack of police power. The country is seeing a glimpse of hope with a decrease in the number of COVID-19 cases here in Metro Manila. According to the latest monitoring report by OWWA Research, the average daily number of new COVID-19 cases in the National Capital Region has decreased by 27% as it dropped to 1,479 per day from May 10 to May 16. The healthcare utilization rate is 45%, while the intensive care unit occupancy is at 57%. The Department of Health said a utilization rate of less than 60% is considered safe. 14 local government units are considered safe in terms of healthcare utilization rate. These include Navotas, Malabon, Manila, Taguig, Caloocan, Pasay, Muntinlupa, Parañaque, Marikina, Las Piñas, Mandaluyong, Pasig, Pateros, and San Juan. Meanwhile, there are 7 LGUs under moderate risk classification. These include Navotas, Malabon, Manila, Taguig, Caloocan, Pasay, and Muntinlupa. But while the healthcare utilization rate and intensive care unit utilization rate of the NCR are already in the safe zone, other nearby provinces still remain in high risk for case surges. These include Rizal, Bulacan, Cavite, and Laguna. Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere urges the local government units to strictly monitor their respective COVID-19 response indicators. She also called on the chief executives to strictly and properly implement the strategies to continuously decongest the facilities and reduce the number of cases. Meanwhile, Health Secretary Francisco Duque III urges the public not to be complacent amid reports on the decline of COVID-19 cases in Metro Manila. He says measures are still in place to ensure that the virus is contained.
Sa ating pong pagsisikap na mapababa ang mga kaso sa pre-surge levels o 1,700 na kaso kada araw, kinakailangan natin ipagpatuloy ang mga sumusunod. Una po, ang pagpapatupad ng localized lockdowns. Ngayon, bumalik na tayo sa GCQ or Generalized Community Quarantine. Kinakailangan muling ipatupad ng mga lokal na pamahalaan ang granular or localized lockdowns upang mapigilan na ang pagkalat ng mga kaso simula pa lamang sa ating mga barangay. Nananawagan po kami sa DILG upang palakasin ang pagpapatupad ng ating pong Operation Listo. Pangalawa pong ating pong mensahe ay ang pagsunod sa minimum public health standards. Ngayon tumataas na ang mobility ng ating mga kababayan kasabay ng ating pong mga pagluluwag. Dapat mas maging strikto ang pagpapatupad ng ating minimum public health standards ng mga lokal na pamahalaan, workplaces at mga commercial establishments.
The Health Department assures that local government units receive their fair share of the COVID-19 jabs. It also assures that ASTRAZENECA is safe amid reports that it causes blood clots among smokers and women who are taking contraceptive pills. Benj Bondoc will give us an update on these vaccines.
The Health Department says it ensures that local government units in Metro Manila receive their fair share of the COVID-19 vaccines that arrive in the country. As for Pfizer, 69% of the jabs are allocated in the different parts of the metro. This is equivalent to 133,170 out of the 193,000 doses of Pfizer. Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere said among those LGUs with the highest allocation would be Pasig, Marikina, Quezon City, Mandaluyong, and San Juan. In Manila, a total of 900 doses of Pfizer vaccines will be initially available at the Manila Prince Hotel near the Manila Police District headquarters in Ermita. The US-made vaccines will be given to the medical frontliners, senior citizens, and those with comorbidities. Meanwhile, Vergere clarifies there is no evidence that smokers and persons taking contraceptives and anticoagulants are more prone to blood clotting disorder after receiving an AstraZeneca shot. Vergere said there are no known predictors for blood clotting disorder as an adverse event. She said blood clotting as an adverse event has not happened in the country. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Benj Bondoc.
The National Task Force Against COVID-19 will work closely with local government units to heighten health and safety protocols during the vaccine rollout. The NTF made the commitment after getting hold of a video of a crowded Parañaque City vaccination site. The task force expressed concern over the lack of social distancing by the vaccinees, which it said the local government of Parañaque had immediately addressed. It urged LGUs to strictly and consistently impose the government's prevent, detect, isolate, treat, reintegrate strategy amid the continuing public health crisis. They must also make sure that announcements, education, and dissemination of vaccine information are communicated accordingly. The public is also encouraged to continue adhering to the minimum health standards, including wearing of face masks and shields, regular hand washing, as well as observing physical distancing. British health officials noted a high degree of confidence that the current vaccines are effective against the B1617.2 or Indian COVID-19 variant. British Health Secretary Matt Hancock made the statement even as he warned that the coronavirus variant can spread like wildfire among those who haven't had a vaccine. He said the variant is becoming the dominant strain in some parts of England, such as Bolton and Blackburn. Hancock urged those who are eligible for vaccination but have not yet booked an appointment to come forward to get their vaccine. Public Health England said cases of the B1617.2 in Britain have more than doubled to 1,313, up from the 520 cases recorded last week. Meanwhile, Thailand hit a new daily record with a discovery of nearly 10,000 new COVID-19 cases on Monday after massive infections were found in the prison system. Over 6,800 of the infected were found to be in prison, according to the Center for COVID-19 Situation Administration. The new infections brought the country's total number of infections to 111,082, with more than 70% having been confirmed during the third wave in April. The huge number of new infections came when the country decided to relax some restrictions on dine-in services at restaurants from Monday. Restaurants in the capital Bangkok and 3 other provinces can provide dine-in services with limited serving capacity and operating hours. Here is the latest look at COVID-19 figures worldwide. Still to come, the Philippine General Hospital resumes operations of its COVID-19 wards, and close to 1 million Filipinos sign up to get a national ID. Details ahead. This is the PNA Newsroom.
Sa matinding laban natin sa Coronavirus Disease 2019, sugpuin din natin ang pagkalat ng fake news. Huwag magbahagi ng impormasyon na hindi tiyak ang pinagmulan. I-check mabuti ang source ng balita. Kumuha lamang ng impormasyon mula sa mga official channel ng Department of Health. Huwag magpadala sa maling balita, basta't sama-sama at laging handa. Kaya natin to. Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito. Pangalagaan ng sarili laban sa Coronavirus Disease 2019. Hanggat maaari, umiwas sa mataong lugar. Iwasang hawakan ang ilong at bibig, maging malinis sa katawan at ugaliin ang wastong paghuhugas ng kamay. Takpan ang ilong at bibig kung uubo o babahing. Umiwas sa mga taong nagpapakita ng sintomas ng coronavirus disease gaya ng lagnat, ubo at sipon. Magsuot ng face mask kung kinakailangan. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa. Kaya natin to. Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
Malacanang said President Rodrigo Duterte could tap from the Presidential Social Fund to help repair the damage caused by the fire that hit the Philippine General Hospital or PGH. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque asked PGH Director Dr. Gerardo Legaspi to just inform the palace about what the hospital needed. Roque said Duterte has directed National Task Force Against COVID-19 Chief Implementer Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. and NTF Deputy Chief Implementer Vince Dizon to visit PGH and check on the extent of the damage of the fire. He also said he ordered the Department of Public Works and Highways to immediately start repairs on damaged portions of the PGA Central Block building. Authorities said the fire, which broke out early Sunday morning, destroyed about 300,000 pesos worth of property. Meanwhile, the PGH has resumed full operations of the COVID-19 ward starting today. Dr. Legaspi earlier said he requested Health Undersecretary Leopoldo Vega to give them one more day to clear and prepare the COVID-19 wards on the 5th, 6th, and 7th floors. He added that the fire-damaged hospital equipment amounting to 30 to 50 million pesos. In a separate media forum, Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeres said the Department of Health has coordinated with the Department of the Interior and Local Government and the Bureau of Fire Protection for the monitoring of DOH hospitals as the number of fire incidents is high during the summer. The Department of Health in Western Visayas plans to start inoculating the Priority A4 group or essential workers this June. However, the DOH said this depends on the supply allocation for Western Visayas and how fast local government units can implement the vaccination once the vaccines are available. About 107,000 individuals from Priority Group A1 to A3 in Western Visayas have availed of the first dose of vaccines against COVID-19 as of May 16. The accomplishment is 47% of the over 228,000 doses total allocation of the region intended for the first shot. Healthcare workers top the priority list, followed by senior citizens and persons with comorbidities. The Department of Agrarian Reform has launched its Serbisyong Door-to-Door program to speed up the distribution of land titles to beneficiaries in Camarines Sur and North Cotabato. More on this from LEYTE Kabagani.
The Department of Agrarian Reform is intensifying the distribution of more than 1,800 Certificate of Land Ownership Awards or CLOAs to beneficiaries across North Cotabato. Rodolfo Alburo, the Provincial Agrarian Reform Program Officer, directed his staff to fast-track the distribution by the end of May 2021, instructed by DAR Secretary John Castriciones. Alburo said municipal agrarian reform officers were directed to bring the CLOAs to the homes of beneficiaries under the Serbisyong Door-to-Door program to hasten the distribution process. Meanwhile, a total of 231 farmer beneficiaries under the government's comprehensive agrarian reform program in Camarines Sur received their CLOAs starting Tuesday. Secretary Castriciones led the land distribution rights to agrarian reform beneficiaries in Barangay Gohon, Lahoy Island and in Caramoan Town through the Serbisyong Door-to-Door program. On Wednesday, Castriciones is set to distribute 255 CLOAs to 107 farmers at the Provincial Capital Convention Center in Pili Town. DAR Assistant Regional Director Romulo Britannico said the Secretary chose to personally deliver the land titles to show that despite the pandemic and remote areas for distribution, DAR is ready to give them help and support. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm LEYTE Kabagani.
More than 800,000 have already signed up for the Philippine Identification System or PhilSys via digital registration as of May 13. The Philippine Statistics Authority or PSA said this was despite the technical glitches experienced when its online portal was opened on April 30. The PSA said it continues to improve the website and accommodate more registrants. The online Step 1 registration process aims to further engage the public without compromising health and safety protocols amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Nearly 34 million Filipinos have done the Step 1 process through house-to-house registration. The government is urging Filipinos to avail of the Philippine Identification or PhilID to eliminate inefficient and expensive processes of securing physical documents. Filipinos who wish to get a PhilID may log on to register.philsys.gov.ph. Up next, the evacuation of OFWs within Israel is ongoing amid escalating tensions in the Jewish state. And an upland village in Leyte offers a respite from the daily grind. Back after a quick break, stay with the PNA Newsroom.
Tandaan ang tamang paraan ng paghuhugas at paglilinis ng kamay upang makaiwas sa iba't ibang karamdaman. Basain ng tubig ang mga kamay at sabunin. Unang sabunin ang mga palad at ang likod ng mga kamay. Kuskusin na maigi ang pagitan ng mga daliri at maging ang mga kuko. Isunod ang pagitan ng mga hinlalaki at kuskusin ng paikot ang mga dulo ng mga daliri sa magkabilang palad. Banlawang mabuti ang mga kamay sa malinis na tubig at patuyuin ang mga kamay gamit ang single-use towel o air dryer. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito. Alamin ang mga dapat gawin sa lugar ng trabaho laban sa Coronavirus Disease 2019. Ang mga kumpanya ay dapat magbigay ng face mask sa kanilang mga empleyado. Bukod dito, magbigay kaalaman din patungkol sa COVID-19. Siguraduhin malinis ang kapaligiran. Maglagay ng sabon at hand sanitizer sa mga palikuran. Siguraduhin ligtas at nalutong maigi ang mga pagkain sa kantina. Obserbahan ang kalusugan ng mga empleyado at katrabaho. Kung sakali man na mayroon silang sintomas ng coronavirus disease, gaya ng lagnat, ubot sipon at hirap sa paghinga, ay agad ipasuri sa doktor. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
You're still watching the PNA Newsroom. The Regional Task Force to End Local Armed Conflict in Western Visayas slammed groups that were critical of the rescue of indigenous peoples minors in Cebu by an interagency task group last February 15. RTF-LCAC spokesperson Flosemera Chris Gonzalez said these groups hide the truth that parents of the children were present during the anti-human trafficking operation and were in fact the complainants and aggrieved parties in the case. He said the institutions where the children were rescued should have ensured whether the minors were allowed by their parents to join what they defined as a delegation. Gonzalez also said the real cause of the problem is the CPP-NPA who have been oppressing IPs in Mindanao. Gonzalez challenged the organizations questioning the rescue operations to condemn the CPP-NPA and their pseudo-legal fronts for the atrocities that they have committed against the IPs of Mindanao. In sports, NBA veterans were elected to the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame 2021 on Sunday. Among those recognized by the Hall of Fame are Chicago Bulls former Croatian forward Tony Kukoc, Miami Heat's former center forward Chris Bosh, Boston Celtics' Paul Pierce, Detroit Pistons former center Ben Wallace, and former Sacramento Kings player Chris Webber, as well as 87-year-old Bill Russell, NBA's first black head coach. Also named as honorees are Rick Adelman, Jay Wright, Yolanda Griffith, Lauren Jackson, Val Ackerman, Cotton Fitzsimmons, Howard Garfinkel, Clarence Fat Jenkins, Bob Dandridge, and Pearl Moore. The Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame pays tribute to world's basketball greats, including coaches, players, and referees for their significant contributions to the game. The class of 2021 will be enshrined in September. In our news overseas, Israel on Sunday bombarded a health facility in Gaza with 2 missiles. In a statement from the Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza, the missiles hit the Al-Daraj Martyrs Health Center, majorly damaging the structure and rendering it inoperable. The statement called on the international community to intervene for the protection of health institutions and medical personnel and for accountability of Israel's actions. Israeli forces have also targeted buildings in Gaza, which had offices of government ministries and media offices of news outlets. The death toll from Israeli attacks on the blockaded territory since May 10 has risen to 181. Meanwhile, the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration said it is conducting an in-country evacuation of overseas Filipino workers amid the escalating tensions in Israel. OWWA Chief Hans Leo Gov't said the priority of the Philippine government's offices in Tel Aviv is to keep Filipinos safe, especially in conflict-hit areas such as Gaza, Ashkelon, and Ashdod. Gov't said there are around 400 Filipinos in these areas. Aside from Philippine offices in the host country, 2 parishes in the area have been tapped as evacuation centers. All efforts aimed at helping Filipinos in Israel are in coordination with the Philippine Overseas Labor Office and the Philippine Embassy in Tel Aviv. Tired of the hustle and bustle of city life? Well, it's time to disconnect from your daily grind and reconnect with nature by exploring the Mahagnao Volcano Natural Park in Barangay Mahagnao, Burahuen, Leyte. In less than 2-hour trek, you will get to see dozens of huge trees, ferns, wildflowers, insects, birds, and different types of bamboo. The latest attraction of the park is the Tangile Trail, named after the tangile trees in the area, which lets visitors relax and experience how it is to commune with nature. The trail ends at Malagsum Lake, a sanctuary to several species of wild ducks. The 500-meter trek is safe and ideal for elderly, children, and others who are not inclined to extreme forest adventures. Meanwhile, the biggest lake in the village is ideal for boating, kayaking, and stand-up paddling. The local government has been investing millions of pesos to develop the ecotourism site despite disruptions caused by the pandemic. Here's another look at today's biggest stories. Going full blast, President Rodrigo Duterte says the government is ready to deal with a possible worst-case scenario due to the emergence of new COVID-19 variants. The president heeds the advice of former Senator Juan Ponce Enrile to ignore critics over the West Philippine Sea issue, saying he is not responsible to anyone for his foreign policy. The Department of Health says 69% of the first batch of Pfizer vaccines that arrived in the country are allotted to Metro Manila. And the evacuation of Filipinos within Israel is underway as exchange of fire between government troops and Palestinian militants is still far from over. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check more news content, visit our webpage or head onto the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, we tell stories that inspire change.